Okay, so we know the instructions, short and ending with a question mark. Yes, sir. Sarah Slotnick.
Barry.
Professor.
Yes.
How does the state of Israel deal with the present U.S. administration?
That's a very good question. First, a question by Barry Slotnick, who I did my first major case with longer ago than either of us want to remember, and who's one of the great lawyers in the United States, asked the question, how does Israel deal with the current administration? Well, I think the way it's dealt with every administration in the past. Israel has had problems with many administrations. It had problems with the Kennedy administration, not with the Johnson administration. It had problems early on with the Nixon administration and not later on. It had terrible problems, obviously, with the Carter administration and then with the first Bush administration. It had problems toward the end of the second Bush administration, particularly over Iran, when the worst Secretary of Defense in modern history, Secretary Gates, was appointed first by Bush and then kept on by Obama. So problems with an administration and Israel are bipartisan in nature, and Israel must always remain bipartisan in nature. It can never become a partisan issue. Israel is too important in its survival, too important for us ever to count on the outcome of an election for support of Israel. And it's very important that conservatives put pressure on conservatives, that liberals put pressure on liberals, that Republicans put pressure on Republicans, that Democrats put pressure on Democrats. So the answer is we continue to put pressure, particularly people like me, who are liberal Democrats. We had the obligation to keep pressure on this administration. What Ed Koch did was an example of that, and I applaud him for using his tremendous political savvy and ability, but remember that he also praised Obama when Obama made a very good speech recently at the United Nations. We cannot turn any administration into an enemy of Israel. We must maintain our support. Jews shouldn't be voting as a bloc. There are Jews who favor economic policies of one side or the other side, and we're Americans, and we vote as Americans, and we are entitled to put Israel's survival and Israel's thriving high on the list of what we believe in as Americans. But I think it would be a mistake for suddenly the Jewish community or the pro-Israel community to turn one side or another. We must maintain strong support from Christians. We must increase support among minorities. We're all trying to do that. And we must never give up on any party or any politician or any president and keep the pressure on. And that's my response. I think we have to make sure that we do the best we can with whoever is president at any given time.
Okay. Dr. Kushner.
I have a question. What do you attribute the amazing radical change in the perception on campuses in society around the world of history?
Okay, it's a very hard question, and if we had, the question was, to what do we attribute these dramatic and radical changes in attitudes toward Israel? I think you'd need Sigmund Freud, Albert Einstein, Moshe Rabbeinu, and I don't know who else in this room to answer that question. It's way above my pay scale. I'm just a lawyer and a professor. I'm not a psychoanalyst, a psychiatrist, or a sociologist or anthropologist. I think part of it grows out of the post-Vietnam anti-American attitude on many college campuses. Many radical professors who grew up in the Vietnam period came to their teaching with a rabid hatred of America, a rabid hatred of Western values, a sense that we cannot criticize other cultures, that we have to focus on the fallacies of America. Look at the United Nations. I mean, just look at that place today, where just take 1 year, 1975. In 1975, between 2 and 5 million Cambodians were being murdered in the largest genocide since the Second World War that Pol Pot brought upon his people. I recently was in Cambodia, and I went to the killing fields, and I saw the museums, and it was just horrible, just horrible. The United Nations did not spend 1 minute debating Cambodia. They spent much of that year debating whether Zionism was racism. And that's what happens at the UN. Now, who's the head of the women's rights group at the UN today? Iran. They kill women. Probably next year they'll be head of the gay rights group because there are no gays in Iran. And the world has turned on its head. But this is not the first time. Gilad Atzmon, in his horrible new book that was endorsed by Mearsheimer, said, Jews probably did poison the wells, and they probably did kill the children to eat their matzahs. After all, why would all the Gentiles hate the Jews so much if all these allegations weren't true? This is Gilad Atzmon arguing that. Well, we've learned as Jews that even if 99% of the world believes something, it can be false. Probably at some point, 99% of the Christian world did believe in the blood libel. It was categorically and absolutely false. And the modern day blood libels that we're hearing are false. And we have an obligation to combat those falsehoods. Sure, it would be good if we could have studies. At Yale University, there was an institute for the study of anti-Semitism. And it was shut down because Yale University would rather have a study of 16th century anti-Semitism. That's scholarship. 16th century anti-Semitism, that's scholarship. It's also boring, it's also irrelevant, and it also will get no people to attend. But the current place that was closed down was studying modern Islamic anti-Semitism. Now that's an interesting subject, but that's a subject that creates controversy on campuses, and the one thing no college president wants is controversy on his campus, particularly controversy from the left. So I don't have an answer for you. I have a solution, but not an answer. I don't understand the etiology, but I understand the cure. And the cure is truth. The cure is never, ever stop combating falsehood with truth. The answer is to just bombard university campuses with generations of students and faculty and writers who can continue to tell the truth. I don't know whether the truth will set us free, or in the end whether the truth will prevail, but we have no alternative but pressing the truth at every point. Yeah, okay?
Professor Dershowitz, I've seen this film a number of times, and I heard you speak at NYS's Counter-Durbin conference, and I have to tell you, I'm depressed. This makes me sad, this makes me scared, and I want to know what gives you hope after seeing a film like this, and after standing across from the UN 2 weeks ago. What makes the little ray of hope at the end of the tunnel?
You know what gives me hope? You give me hope. The fact that we have young people here today who are prepared to stand up to this hatred. I'm an optimist by nature, and I have to be an optimist as a criminal lawyer. There are constantly fighting battles that are very, very difficult. In our business, Barry will tell you, we never get the choice between good, better, best. Our choice is usually bad, worse, worser, worsest, and utterly unacceptable. And we have to try to bring it up from there to, not so bad. And so we're used to fighting the incremental battles. I have a lot of faith in my students and in young people. And I see, I don't want to become egotistical about this, but I see that, for example, at Harvard, the situation on our campus is a very good one. We do not have hatred on our campus. We do not have this kind of eroticized hatred. Let me give you an experience that happened to me. You can date it, it's 7, 8 years ago, whenever it was that Arafat died. I always call it Arafat's untimely death, because if he had only died 4 or 5 years earlier, we might have had peace in the Middle East as the result of the two-state solution being offered by Clinton and Barack. But he died when he died, so the Palestinian students wanted to put up a flag, a Palestinian flag on the Harvard campus. I don't think that you were there at the time, but Harvard had a silly rule saying you can't put up a flag in any country that's not in the UN. So the Palestinian students came to me, asked me to represent them because I'm a First Amendment person and I happen to agree with their view on that. I said, look, here's the deal. I will represent you free, and I think I will win this case, and you will put up your flag, but I will stand there when you put up your flag, handing out leaflets about what Arafat was all about, the true story of Arafat. Do you agree with that? And they said, yes. And it was a great day for the First Amendment. They put up their flag, I handed out the leaflets, all sides were presented, and the dialogue at Harvard is very, very good. All you need is a couple of professors and a few students who are prepared to always stand up, never allow a statement to go unanswered. That's the key. The tragedy is on some universities you don't have a single professor. Let me tell you what happens. I go to a place like Ohio State, big, enormous university. I make a speech to 1,600 people. The next day I get 3 or 4 calls that go like this. Thank you, Alan, for speaking up. I said, why are you whispering? I said, well, you know, I can't speak up on my campus. I'm really afraid of speaking up. But I support you. I agree with you 100%. And I'm glad you spoke up. And so the professors on campuses get divided into several groups. There are groups that say, we can't speak up. We're not experts on this. Well, they're not experts on abortion. And they're not experts on gay rights either. But they speak up on those issues. But they're afraid to speak up. Or the other group says, well, we can't speak up because we are experts. And as a result of being experts, we don't want our expertise to be questioned by advocacy. So if you divide the world into those who know and those who don't know, and neither one is prepared to speak up, you're going to get silence. And that's what happens. And I think students have to put pressure on their professors. It's not that there are not professors out there who don't support them. They have no courage. I have to tell you, this is my 48th year of teaching at Harvard. I have never met a group of people in my life with less courage than tenured professors. They are the most ones I have ever met. These are people who have full tenure, they can't lose their job no matter what they do, and they're terrified about speaking out on a controversial issue because maybe their student evaluations will go down, as mine have. I'm a pretty good teacher, but my student evaluations, when I started advocating for Israel, I now get at least 10 or 20% of the students who give me zeros on everything. For example, I have a policy of inviting every single student, some of you who have been my students know this, every single student gets invited to my home for dinner, and I have lunch with every single student in my class in groups of 8. So I have more access to students outside of class than almost anybody. And there's one criteria for access out of class. I get 0 from the students who hate me because of my views on Israel. I get turned down from academic organizations because of my support for Israel. It doesn't matter to me because, you know, I've been there so long that I really don't care. I do have a thick skin about this, but imagine young assistant professors who are trying to be promoted and who see what happens to those of us who strongly support Israel and get condemned in the court of public opinion. They are terrified. And therefore, it has to become obligatory for people who support Israel to stand by their views. And students like Rachel Fish, who were at Harvard, who pressured professors to stand up and do the right thing, are to be applauded. And she was in the film, and she is a great person. She made Harvard give back $3 million. We need the money. But she made Harvard give back $3 million that we got from the Zayed Foundation, which is a Holocaust denial anti-Semitic foundation. And she made it do it, and she built it, and it's doing it. We need more students like that. We need more young faculty who are prepared to stand up. We need more organizations like this that are prepared to give the students the weapons and ammunition with which to fight back.
Is there one more in the middle there? Yes, ma'am.
Professor, I believe that the Saudis and other Arab nations finance some school speaking things. Could you talk about the state of Hillel today and what are we doing in regard to that question?
Okay, Hillel is a wonderful, great organization on college campuses. It really gives students an opportunity to, identify themselves as Jews. But like every Jewish organization on campus, it is going through some difficulties on some campuses. Hillel is, after all, an umbrella organization. And therefore, when you get on some campuses groups of anti-Zionist Jews who want to join Hillel, just like groups of anti-Zionist Jews who want to go on Operation Birthright, we can't stop that. And we shouldn't try to. What we should try to do is make sure that we have answers. Make sure that if they have their ability to state their points of view, that our point of view is stated. What was so bad about what happened at Irvine, and what was so typical about what happened in Irvine, is the people who tried to shut down Michael Oren at Irvine thought they owned the truth. Thought they didn't need another point of view to be presented. The same thing was true when I was prevented from speaking, or tried to be prevented from speaking in Norway. By the way, also they stopped me from speaking in South Africa. I went to South Africa and spoke to the Jewish community, and the University of Cape Town invited me to speak and then canceled. They canceled the invitation. They said there were insufficient interest. So we moved the venue. We've got 1,400 people to show up in Montreal. Insufficient interest. It was just a lie. And it was a lie perpetrated by Jewish anti-Zionists, a man named Dennis Davis, who serves on their Supreme Court, put an ad, not an ad, an op-ed in the Cape Town Times saying, Dershowitz, you are not welcome in Cape Town, because I had been supportive of Israel and critical of Bishop Tutu. And so you have the attempt to shut down different points of view. So I think one of the first things that we have to push is for full and complete free speech on campus. Remember, some of these places, University of Concordia, they prevented not only Benjamin Netanyahu from speaking there, but they prevented Ehud Barak from speaking there. Efforts have been made to try to prevent pro-Israel speakers from speaking on other campuses, or to shout them down. I am confident that if there are more debates on college campuses, more opportunities to present all sides of the issues, that we will prevail in the court of public opinion. Let's remember one good thing. You asked me about optimism. So there was an effort to try to get a divestment campaign done at many universities. It's interesting who signed the divestment petitions, for example, at Harvard. Poetry professors and psychology professors, and a couple of linguistics professors. Not a single professor from the business school, not a single professor from the medical school, not a single professor from the law school. Real people who are going to be out there doing real business are generally supportive of Israel. If you look at the financial community today on Wall Street, it's supportive of Israel. If you look at the bar, it's generally very supportive of Israel. If you look at the medical profession, it's supportive of Israel. We're losing the poets and the linguists. Now, that's a big deal on college campuses, but in real life, they don't exist. They don't matter. We can write better poetry than they can, and we should. And as far as linguistics is concerned, Noam Chomsky famously said, when he was asked why he wrote a blurb or an endorsement of somebody who denied the Holocaust, he said, there's no anti-Semitic implication in denying the Holocaust. The man doesn't understand the basic meaning of the English language. And we have to debate them and argue with them in the court of public opinion. Don't get discouraged at what happens in poetry and psychology departments. I don't want to put down anybody. But look at the bright side, and the bright side is people who are going to run the country in the future are generally supportive of Israel in the United States. I wish I could say the same about Norway. I wish I could say the same about France. But we also have our allies in all of those countries, and we have to focus on the alliances that we can build with other countries. We have built great alliances at Harvard between the African-American community and the pro-Israel community, and that's been very positive, with the Latino community, with the Asian community. We have to keep building bridges, and we can't ever rest. The struggle for justice never stays won, the struggle against anti-Semitism never stays won, and the struggle for truth never stays won. That's why we have to keep fighting it. Thank you all very much.